Hello everybody, and welcome to my guide to how the guild I am in defeats Plutonous the Immortal in the River of Souls raid instance. This boss is normally done as the second boss of the instance, though the first three bosses can be done in any order. He mainly requires careful movement and timing by the raid as a whole. We use one tank with a dedicated healer here, along with 1 to 3 raid healers. We also use a Riftstalker spec rogue wearing his normal DPS gear, with a healer on them for the second phase. The rest of the raid can be melee or ranged DPS with the appropriate hit or focus. Plutonous' area has a large icon in the middle and 5 galvanic foci around the edges of his area. Everyone will need to be inside this area during the fight, so be careful to make sure everyone is ready on the pull. The pull itself is pretty straightforward. The tank picks him up and moves him over towards one of the pillars round the outside, making sure he is not directly in line with the focus and the central icon. DPS can begin immediately, though melee should be careful as the boss will cleave just after he has done his starting animation, so make sure you are not in front of him when this happens. He has 3 abilities that he will use throughout the fight. The first is a lightning clap, which is a cleave that will hit people in front of him, so people need to be careful with their positioning, especially in the second phase. His next ability is shocking ciphers, which will hit a random raid member, damaging them and any people near them. This hits for about 75% of your health, so it can do some quite significant damage. This ability puts a debuff on people for a second or so before it goes off, so raid healers should watch out for this and be ready. He will also cast Walking Sleep on a random person, which is a confuse effect that will cause the affected person to walk randomly for about 4 seconds. This needs to be cleansed quickly so people do not walk into the lightning fields, especially in the second phase. It has a green coloured debuff, so people should watch out for this. Plutonous has an energy bar that will increase during the fight, and if it reaches 100% will cause Plutonous to cast Demolishing Wave, which will wipe the raid. For the first phase, which is until Plutonous' health reaches 50%, you need to use the foci at the edges of the room to manage this. If Plutonous hits one of the foci with his lightning clap, he will destroy it. This will do a large amount of raid damage along with resetting his energy to 0. Care needs to be taken with the timing here. Once the boss gets to about 50% energy, we wait for the next casting of Shocking Cipher before moving him over to one of the foci to destroy it. This is because if Shocking Cipher goes off at a similar time to the foci being destroyed, chances are a lot of your raid will be killed by the combination of the damage. It normally takes about the destruction of 3 foci before he goes into phase 2. This happens at 50% of Plutonous' health, and it is a good idea to use a focus just before this happens, so the boss has as little energy as possible when he enters the second phase. When the second phase starts, there will be a lightning field around the edge of his area. If anyone touches this field, they will be killed and or heal the boss. People need to be careful that they are not standing where the field will appear when the boss hits 50%. In this second phase, you can no longer use the foci to reduce Plutonous' energy. Instead, you have to use the crystals on the floor. Each of these will reduce Plutonous' energy by about 20% when someone clicks on them. They will also put a dot on the person who clicks on them, doing 25% of their health every second for 4 seconds. We assign a Riftstalker rogue to do this, as their teleports allow them to leap over the field, and they will need a healer focusing on them throughout this phase. The lightning field itself will move as Plutonous loses health. Each time he loses 10% of his health, the field will shift. This is why we move the boss to the centre of the room at 50% health, ready for the first field shift, which will cut off the far half of the room at 40%. During this phase, the cleansing of Walking Sleep needs to be fast, otherwise people might walk into the field and be killed. The field will then shift at 30% into a rectangle, and again at 20%, this time into a triangle. At 10% the field will not shift, but it will begin to collapse. It will be a triangle at this stage, with the point nearest to where you enter the area collapsing down towards the other two. This fight then becomes a DPS race, as you need to kill Plutonous before the field collapses entirely. As long as the DPS is high enough, this fight is mainly about the movement of the fields in the second phase, and controlling Plutonous' energy throughout the fight. If this can be managed, this boss should fall. Thank you for watching, I've been Zero Override, and I wish you luck with this boss.